floor. Embiid stuffs it. Harden for three. James Harden with his second triple.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pick Swap podcast. It's been a little while. Sean and I haven't been able to get in the studio, over the last 2 weeks or so. So it's been a little bit. I'm happy to be back here with Sean. Sean, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, man, we had a chance to check out the Rumph Classic on Monday. Me and you both popped over to that, so I had a chance to watch Tyrese Maxey play up close and personal, as well as Isaiah Joe, a couple other NBA guys, both the Morris twins. You guys can check out a video on that on the channel as well from some highlights we got from that. But yeah, that is kind of the man of the hour right now is Tyrese Maxey. So excited to get fully into it.
Yeah, man. It's like I said, it's been a little bit. We've got a lot to cover. There's a lot of things that have happened over the last week or so since we've been gone. We're going to get to talk pretty in-depthly about the Rumph and how awesome of an experience that was for the both of us. But, to begin here, talking about this massive thing, basically the only thing that's still happening in the NBA this offseason. Once things die down, Kevin Durant does his best to liven them back up. So the trade request has kind of become more public, and he basically asked, made an ultimatum to his owner, Joe Tsai, and said it's either me or Steve Nash and Sean Marks, who, head coach and GM. So he basically said it's me or them. Joe Tsai fairly publicly went to Twitter and said, basically, I'm going to side in favor of my coach and my general manager. Kevin Durant then proceeds to say he's going to add Boston and Philadelphia to his preferred destination list. I guess he's adding them, on top of Phoenix and Miami, but as we know, those two things seem like they're not really going to happen. So it seems as right now, Boston and Philadelphia are maybe the two players here, maybe the two contenders in this Kevin Durant sweepstakes. How do you feel, just before we talk about Tyrese and the whole thing that's going to follow this conversation, just in general, how do you feel about that alone? Kevin Durant basically saying, I want to come play in Philadelphia. That would be one of the places I would like to go.
Yeah, so I'm fairly split on just about all of this. I mean, first off, it's awesome to hear that Kevin Durant, who's one of the top 5 players in the NBA, still wanting to play in Philadelphia. That Philadelphia has become a desired place to come for. That's what we saw with James Harden last year. We're seeing with Kevin Durant now. I guess that's a positive to take away from it. I kind of get caught on when I look at like the Sixers' realistic chances of landing him. I feel like any offer the Sixers put forward can't touch what Boston can offer. Like if the Celtics really want Kevin Durant, I feel like they can have him. A deal built around somewhat of a Jaylen Brown, Grant Williams, 3 first-round picks, whatever. The picks are the biggest hurdle that the Sixers have to find a way to clear. They can't offer a first-round pick until 2029 because of picks that they've already traded and because of the Stipien rule, which states that you can't trade first-round picks in back-to-back years. And if we're talking about like pick swaps, which you can do, and obviously good for the brand if there would be some pick swaps in there. But realistically, that's not an appeal to the Nets either, because a team with Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, and James Harden presumably is not going to be ending near the bottom tier of the league. So that really would be kind of a nothing factor there. Kind of the deal that I guess could be possible and would be really the Sixers' best case. I mean, we're going to get into it more, but it would be kind of a Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, Tobias Harris, probably lifting the protections on the 2027 pick, which right now is top 8 protected and Brooklyn already has possession of, and putting our 2029 in there. And I realistically don't think that can hold up to what Boston or some other teams around the NBA could offer, but I don't know. I'm very split on the whole thing.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I think the entire fan base is pretty split right now. It's because it's going to come down to that. If the Sixers were able to put a package together to acquire Kevin Durant, it's, presumably going to include Tyrese Maxey. And, as we know, and as what we saw on Monday, the way that the city loves that kid, it's really hard to look at that with, the potential there, what we've already seen from him, going into his 3rd season, having played so well with, alongside James Harden, and has been really growing, in a lot of these areas. It's not, I feel like it's not always as simple as it's made out to be. Obviously, Kevin Durant is better than Tyrese Maxey. Like that's sure. No one's saying that. And no one's saying it's not worth it to maybe give up what Tyrese Maxey brings to the table in terms of on-court play to what Kevin Durant would bring. Like a core of James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid is undoubtedly the best big 3 in the league. And may contend for one of the best to have ever been assembled. But I think when you're looking at what Tyrese Maxey is, I think there's much more nuance to it than what's being led on. Like, he's not just another player, right? The city loves him. This team loves him. He's blossomed into a star here. And I think that means something. And I think Daryl Morey in the front office and that coaching staff love him to death, as they should. So I think that plays a factor in it too. And do you think that's enough to keep him around? Like, do you think that's enough to say, maybe we'll roll with the, roll our dice that we have here, rather than go make a trade for a Kevin Durant? Do you think that changes it?
Yeah, I guess my short answer to that is no. But what I guess my perception of it is this all comes down to timelines. Is
Yeah,
how you look at it, and we've talked about how the Sixers are in win now mode, because they certainly are
right.
with Joel Embiid. Like, the championship window is open right at this very minute. Now, does Kevin Durant increase your chances of winning a championship next year? Absolutely. But does it guarantee you a championship? I personally don't think so. Like you said, the trio of James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid would be terrific. I think it probably would be the best big three of all time in NBA history. But it's also three guys that have injury history that either if there's a major injury or a change of heart, like, everything blows up. And it also is, you're setting yourself up for some very bad years that we're talking about. Like, Maxey's kind of been the extension of the hope of the Sixers team. And the reason that I sit on the no side of the fence for actually pulling the trigger on this deal is I believe that he extends the window for Embiid and Harden too. And I think looking forward, like 5 years into the future, at this point, Maxey is 26, Embiid is 33, Harden is 37. That's still a contending team. And I think Maxey is capable of stepping into a primary scoring role, a primary offensive option on a contending team. And I get, like, the goal is obviously a championship, and that's what you're searching for. But I think you narrow your window so much if you do this Kevin Durant deal that it becomes like truly you win a championship within the next 2-3 years, or it's a massive failure. And that's very tough to do because it's just so unpredictable that I would rather kind of keep the options open and give yourself like a legitimate chance in the next, say, 5 years than I would like all your eggs in this basket for the next 3, because we've seen how the NBA goes with, like, it's as simple as, like, if one of these guys is not healthy, because the nature of roster construction when you're building a big three is you're so reliant on those superstars. So if one of those guys is not healthy, your team just simply doesn't stand up. And we've seen how the tides of the NBA have turned from away from the big three era to becoming like a well-rounded roster construction. And we've seen evidence that with the Bucks, even the Warriors this past year, the bubble Lakers, even I would throw in that conversation, and teams like they just find role players to maximize on their stars. And that's been the Sixers tune this entire offseason, is getting guys like D'Anthony Melton, like PJ Tucker, the guys that win you the margins. And you're really kind of chalking that up for Kevin Durant, which once again, he's Kevin Durant, but I don't know, kind of where I sit on it.
Yeah, I think we're kind of in the same boat here. It really is, again, it's one of those things, like, just with Maxey, and I want to go back to, like, my original question, kind of give my side as well. Like, I think there is something to be said about holding on to a guy like that. Like, we were talking about it, I was joking the other night, like, Furkan Korkmaz is the second longest tenured Sixer. And I'm trying to think about who's next. Like, it's Tobias. It's got, like, guys that you're not thinking of. It's Shake Milton. It's probably Shake. So it's probably Embiid, Furkan, and Shake. Like, they don't have another cornerstone, right? Like, they don't have a guy that's been there. You have Giannis in Milwaukee. You have obviously Steph, Clay, and Dre in Golden State. Like, you're looking at the teams that have been there. This kind of, spur of the moment, throw things together, as enticing as it is, because like you said, and I think we're going to probably say this a million times, like, it's Kevin Durant, right? Like, it's not just this guy or that guy or putting your chips in for a certain person. It's Kevin Durant. He had I think he had 39, 7, and 10 his last playoff game. So you're talking about, one of the greats, a guy that could go down as a top 10 player in history. So there is a convincing argument, a compelling argument on that side of it, right? But I think when you're talking about Tyrese Maxey, going into his third year, supposed to maybe projected to average around 20 points per game, and is just now blossoming into what he may be. And a guy that you're looking at saying, we want him to be here. He's, not only just a great player, but a great kid, loves the community loves him back just as much. And I think taking that guy out of the equation, like, it hurts a lot. It's not just a number. It's not just a player. He is, very meaningful. And I think a guy that you would want to give the keys to in this next phase, like you said. So when you are talking about Tyrese, I think it's important to note that But when you are looking at it, like it's KD, it's KD. He's a guy that immediately puts you in title contention for years to come. But the thing is, I don't think they're not title contenders, right? I think we're all on the same page, is that they're a top 5 team in the league, in our opinion, right? They've gotten better. They have another year together, another guys together, getting better, playing together. And on top of that, if the only other option is Boston, like, again, if you're Boston, I'm saying absolutely not. Like, I love Jaylen Brown. He was probably our best player in the finals. I don't know if I'm Boston, if I'm looking at that and saying I'm going to give up our depth and what we're really good at, defensive anchors and team basketball, and giving that up for Kevin Durant. Like, I think they could wait it out. And I have some other questions to go through, but I don't know if you have anything to add there as well.
Yeah, so I'll say if I am Boston, I am pulling the trigger on this just because different situation. Jason Tatum's obviously the 1A there.
Yeah.
That you're building around him more so than Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown was the best player in the finals on their team, but he still has limitation in his game, and I don't think he's ever a certified 1A guy. And adding Kevin Durant, like, he's 33, about to be 34 before the season starts. You're kind of picking, like, anybody questioning if Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum can play together, I think is crazy.
Yeah.
Mine, I think they're pretty seamless with that. But to circle back to like the Sixers conversation on it, well, first off, I'll say I've also kind of soured on Kevin Durant a little more than I think I have in the past with this net stint, because like this organization has bowed down to everything he's asked for. That like Kevin Durant has essentially run the show. That he signed his 4-year deal, he brought in whoever he want, they signed whatever players he want. He handpicked Steve Nash, who he's now calling for his job. Like, this was his guy when he was like a shooting coach with the Warriors. And to now kind of turn around and just force out with still 4 years on your deal. And after everything, like, I get there's unique circumstances. Nobody can predict all the Kyrie Irving stuff with the pandemic and everything that goes along with that. But it still is just like you kind of made your bed and you got to sleep in it, in my opinion. And then I know there's been all the talk about like the bus rider versus bus driver for Kevin Durant and his championships with that. But it's like, I don't know. To me, it's just like it's the easy way out for him. And like, I feel like the Sixers have a chance of falling into that trap of him tearing up their organization as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing is when you are looking at it, it's like you are kind of putting your chip. I mean, with a trade like that, when you are mortgaging your future, you are putting your chips all in the middle all at the same time. And again, the Sixers aren't a win now timeline, but I don't think that they're like, normally when you're making a big trade like that, you're fast tracking yourself into a title contender.
Right.
The Sixers are already there. So obviously that pushes them ahead. That makes them absolutely lethal. What do you do? Who do you stop? If you're like that. And I think there's a lot of ways that it makes them, by far the best team and by far the favorite to win. It also really solidifies them as the villain of the league. I think that would be, people already do not like the Sixers for whatever reason, what have you. There's many reasons out there, but adding Kevin Durant to that, and then also like the fact that he's teaming back up with James Harden. It seems like they're back in cahoots together. They like each other again. They're out in London right now, working out together. We have videos surfaced today of them working out together, and what happened there. That this is the guy that wouldn't pick James Harden in the All-Star game because he was that pissed at him because he requested out, and then here he is doing the same thing a couple months later. So interesting turn of events here. This team, I mean, again, we keep going back to it. James Harden does really look like the smartest guy in the room there. Definitely looked like the good guy in the situation. And maybe got out ahead of it. The old Bill Belichick adage, like, it's better to cut a guy a year too soon than a year too late. James Harden knew it was time to go when it was time to go, and he got out. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Like, he can't play for them, right? Like, he cannot play again. Like, Kevin Durant cannot play for the Nets again.
Yeah,
He really asked for his coach's head.
Yeah, and by the way, like, the Sixers are just finding new ways to tamper every single day this offseason. Like, this James Harden thing, I first off, we're like ignoring the fact that, like,
yeah,
to some extent they're gonna have a punishment at the end of this offseason that really I just feel like hasn't been recognized enough. Like, we can shake our heads and scoff that it's like whatever, but like the NBA is gonna throw something at them, and who knows how significant. And then, like, it's no coincidence whatsoever that all this stuff is dropping as Harden and Durant are literally like hanging out overseas and training in Barcelona and doing everything together. So like, if there wasn't enough attention from the NBA on like the Sixers like doing this, it has to be right now. And once again, like, what can you do? Like, these guys are friends. Like, you can't punish James Harden and Kevin Durant for hanging out, but like they are getting very creative in the ways to tamper this year. So got to give them credit for it.
Yeah, I mean they're working out together. You put your hands up. I don't know anything that's going on. They're not tracking their conversations, but it's just funny how it's played out. And like, I don't know, man. I think this is going to be interesting. Like I said, he can't play another game for them, but the Nets are also in a very strange position, I feel like. Obviously this is all kind of falling apart right in front of them, in a way that we've never really seen before. But now Kyrie's apparently all in. You see that thing today, that he apparently wanted his contract to guarantee that he wouldn't have to play more than 60 games and wouldn't play any back-to-back. So even when you think he's done with the bullshit, he's back on it again. So it's a strange situation that they're in, but now really this is going to be a big deal, right? We talked about the Ben Simmons situation last season being a really big deal, and it was. And the Sixers waited and said, you can rot here. Like, it's, sorry, but not sorry. You sign a contract. Kevin Durant, sorry, dude, but like you did sign an extension that you haven't even played a single game under yet. They're going to let him be there until they get what they want. And what they want is an unreal package, which, again, it's Kevin Durant. He warrants that type of package. And I don't know if there's anyone out there that's in the situation that he wants to be in. I guess that's another point to go to as well. He can say that he wants to go to Boston or wants to come to Philadelphia or wants to go to Phoenix. It takes two to tango. It takes two teams to make a trade. And the Nets do not have to oblige to his wants and needs. They can tell him it does not matter to me. I'm going to make a trade for the trade that's right for us. So, if Philadelphia isn't going to offer Tyrese, then they're not going to trade him to Philadelphia. And maybe Orlando offers something, or maybe, whoever it may be may offer something. And he doesn't want to go play in Sacramento, but the Sacramento Kings offered the best package. So what are you going to do? Like, do you think maybe one of those teams goes and gets him?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Brooklyn, I don't care whatsoever what Kevin Durant's desired landing spots are. Like,
yeah, right.
I'm taking whatever the best offer is. And it's also like, when we think about this, like, so the package that I threw out at the beginning of this, which was Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, Tobias Harris, a 2029 first-round pick, and a 2027 protections taken away. Like, that's really nothing for Kevin Durant. Like, that is not like a package that if I'm the Nets, I'm ready to pull the trigger on. Think about 2 months ago that the Timberwolves traded 4 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert, who is like not even in the same conversation of player of Kevin Durant. So like, if I'm Brooklyn, I'm still hanging out for a better deal than that, really, too. And I do think that Maxey's trade value is larger to NBA teams than I think it is to the public. I think the fact that he's on his rookie deal matters a good bit. The fact that he's on his rookie deal and still like a contributing member of a contending team, I think is something very valuable. But like, I don't know. I think there's teams like the Celtics, like the Pelicans, and really whoever wants to actually go get him that can field a better offer than what the Sixers can. And if I'm the Nets, I'm ready to play this game of chicken of like we'll see if you want to suit out, but I'm not ready to pull the trigger just yet.
Yeah, and I think that's something to keep an eye on, because, again, like if Ben Simmons came out and was like, hey, my preferred destination is here, here, and here, like the Sixers would just tell him to piss off. And that's what they did, kind of. And I think that's what the Nets are going to do. They don't have to worry about what he does. And he's kind of in uncharted territory. I know, I was talking to a couple friends yesterday, and they're like, well, AD and, all this. I'm like, AD requested out, with a year left in his deal and said, if you trade me anywhere else, I'm just going to sign with the Lakers in the offseason. So, like, basically that gave all the leverage to AD, because he was like, if you're going to trade me to Dallas, they know I'm not signing with them. So, like, it is what it is. Kevin Durant signed an extension for 4 years that starts this season. So, and he's not in a, position age-wise to sit out.
Yeah.
He's not getting any younger. He's still at a very high level. He's clearly competing at, maybe close to his peak. He surprised a lot of people last year coming back from an injury and everything. So I think it's going to be a weird way for it to play out, because I think the Nets really could just hold on and say, we're not going to go until, we want to. And I think that's what they have to do. I'm very much for player empowerment. I definitely am. But when these situations arise and stuff like this and the Simmons stuff, like you do have to live up to your end of the deal as well. Kevin Durant did sign a contract there. wanted to be there. And even James Harden, like he forced his way out, obviously. But again, he was going into free agency this summer. So had they not moved him, he just would have left.
Yeah.
So there's leverage there. Whereas Kevin Durant has no leverage. He's stuck on a deal, a team that has to be in a very specific situation, and has a very specific roster setup where they can trade a lot and still bring him in and be a contender. Like it's a very unique situation, and I don't think people are digging into the nuances and the folds of it as much as I think there are, because there's whether it's Boston or Philadelphia, they have their own nuances, and Brooklyn as well. They have to make a statement here. So
Yeah.
do you think it's possible he sits and just rots there for a lit?
Yeah, I definitely think that's in the conversation, at least a possibility. I agree with everything you said there. And as far as like the player empowerment thing, agreed. Like it's obviously a great thing that the power has shifted a little bit, but I do think the pendulum has swung too much to the point where like, what do the contracts even really mean anymore? And like
Yeah.
we saw this with Simmons, we're kind of running through the same thing. I don't believe that it's been settled exactly whether he recoups his money or not. I guarantee the NBA is on the side of the Sixers of ensuring that he doesn't get that back because of the precedent that sets. But it's a very similar situation with Kevin Durant if he does sit out here, and like that just can't be the case. And kind of how the entire world works is like if you don't go to work, you don't get paid, and it shouldn't be any different for guys like playing basketball at this level. And like I get like money is a very different thing to them versus like normal people in the world because of just simply how much they make, and like they can obviously take like not getting paid for a stretch of time. So that's not the biggest motivator for these guys. But like, it's just so crazy to me that like this is becoming the case. And I do think the next CBA is going to be an absolute bloodbath for addressing this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and where do you start? There's so many things that have happened, and all again, like I said, it's a lot of very situational
Yeah.
things that have come up, and I think again, like we said this a lot when the Simmons stuff was happening. It's like the reality of the situation, it really only matters to the people that are involved. So like our reality is that he looks kind of like a jerk, and that he looks like it's all messy. I'm sure he feels justified in his decision to say I don't want to play here anymore. So
Sure.
like justification can be reality for him or a guy like Ben. So it's hard to say what exactly happened. Like he did basically handpick this team, and guys like LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, and obviously him and Kyrie they were joining Brooklyn on their own, and they could have gone other places or whatever. And maybe the Ben Simmons thing, like who even knows? Like what if it seemed like he was really supportive of Simmons when he first got there, but maybe that playoff series turned the tides. Like genuinely, I would like to know. Like I wish I knew what the situation was and what it actually was that turned the tides here. But and how does he not like Steve Nash? He literally asked for him. There was other options out there. His name is escaping me. Yeah.
Mhm.
He was a very good coach, and that
Yeah.
team was fun and young before they got there. And then they kind of blew it up, and now the Nets are staring down the barrel of another very, very sad gun, because they were in this situation before. They went all in on some older guys, didn't work, and then they were really bad for a while. So it looks like they might be in a similar situation.
Yeah, and what we kind of touched on last time we recorded is how because of them trading just about all their draft picks for James Harden, they're not in the position to
Yeah.
step back and rebuild. Like they have to find a deal that keeps them in contention, because it does them no good being a real rebuilding team because they don't even have their own draft picks. So really,
Yeah.
the Houston Rockets are like the consolation winner here. And I also want to touch on the Ben Simmons group chat thing real quick. Did you see this
Yeah.
of shout out Rick Bucher was his name, same guy that reported the Kyrie contract. So I don't know how much I buy into his legitimacy, but it's still like I want to believe this is true. Shams went on and declined it, but basically before Game 4 of the playoffs, where Ben Simmons was supposed to make his return, even though he was really supposed to make his return like his entire time in Brooklyn, but when like that date actually came and it was asked in the Nets group chat if Ben would be playing tomorrow, according to Rick Bucher, that Ben Simmons just left the conversation. Now, Shams went on to say that this was false, that this never happened, and that it's a very funny and true story, but it just didn't. To which point, Rick Bucher doubled down and said how Shams and Ben Simmons have the same management, that he's here to rebuild Ben's ego, legacy, whatever you want to put it, which it is true that they have the same management. They're represented by the same people. I think it was interesting to double down on that. I really want this to be true. Do you have any thoughts on this, James?
Yeah, it's unbelievable that we're in a situation with Simmons that the majority of people will hear that and not for a second be like, no way, that's
Mhm.
couldn't have happened, right? His reputation is so bad within the league and especially within NBA fan base itself that nobody respects him at all to say maybe that didn't happen. The first thought is that sounds like something Ben Simmons would do. So that's a pretty terrible look for him. Um, it does sound like something he might do.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
as terrible as that is, it does seem like it's something he might do. From what we've heard over the last year about his character and what he values, his morals, seems like that might be in the playing cards for him. But to think that that's the case, and if that's something like I said, if that relationship spoiled very quickly before Simmons even stepped on the court, maybe that is like maybe that's why Kevin Durant's like, I don't like you, obviously, but I don't like the guy that traded for you either because we had a really good player and now we don't. And the guy that we got in return for him was a guy that won't even play. So like maybe there is something there as well. He's not a fan of Ben. He's not a fan of Sean Marks because of the deal that was made. But I don't know, man. It's a very, very interesting situation that definitely will not be a clean break when it happens.
Yeah, and very funny regardless. And
Yeah.
I haven't seen it really reported publicly, but I have heard some whispers of that one of the things discussed in the meeting was that Kevin Durant is not a fan of Ben and basically what he's been bringing and pretty much since he's been there. So I could definitely see that being something that changed based on it. So I don't know. It's nice to see that like another team really looks to be the mess of the NBA, not the Sixers, and that we're seeing this. So I guess that aspect, it's cool to sit out and watch kind of Brooklyn go up in flames. I do think since this was constructed with kind of the mindset of these guys, and we know the personalities that each of them brought, that it was destined to have
Yeah.
to blow up like this, which is another reason why I'm concerned about fully buying into the big three and bringing Durant and everything that comes along with him to Philadelphia. Uh, Frankly, we've seen way more of these big three and just egos and star egos become messes, which is also a concern and also a reason that like I think we're cool with rocking with what we got. And
Yeah.
I do want to slide the conversation to the Rumph Classic, and we obviously got a chance to see Tyrese Maxey play up close and personal at LaSalle University. So very cool. James, give me your initial thoughts on the event and everything that went down.
Yeah, man. It was maybe probably my favorite basketball related experience that I've ever had as a fan. You picked me up. We got there, line all the way out down the parking lot, and just a ton of people. There's so much energy. Place sold out. It was general admission. Place sold out. Fans from the court all the way up to the roof. Media and fans crowded on the sidelines and baselines, and the energy of just waiting. And then Tyrese gets out, and he's warming up, and they're all warming up, and him and Isaiah Joe get there. Just an incredible experience. And then on top of that, there was a point in the second quarter where Tyrese just went crazy, and you're real close. You're on the baseline. I'm in the third row. We end up getting there, later in the day, and being that close and seeing those guys, like we're very rarely going to have those opportunities. So, just an incredible, fun experience, and I was so happy that we ended up making it there for that game.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of the cooler events around Philadelphia and with basketball. There's been some amazing names that have come through there in the past. James Harden, Jason Tatum. I was running through the list the other day and was very impressed with just all the guys
Yeah.
throughout. Lou Williams, another one. Just pretty much a lot of just Philly folklore guys that have also played there. And very cool to watch these guys go head to head with NBA guys. Both the Morris twins, obviously, Team FOE took home the win and have for Marcus Morris, back-to-back MVPs, first one in Rumph Classic history. So shout out him for that. I thought everybody played very well. It was very cool to watch. Isaiah Joe, I thought it was cool to see him get involved there because he's a guy that kind of hasn't gotten like necessarily the shine, and I think it's just cool. He had some nice moments as well. He ended with 16 points. Tyrese Maxey had 34, 10 rebounds, couple assists too. Just an awesome event all around, and just like kind of what we talked about earlier, but like just embracing the city in the way he has is so cool. Wearing the number 3 Iverson jersey was just awesome to me. And Maxey said if it wasn't for it being retired in Philadelphia, that would be his number. I believe that's what he wore in college and all throughout too. So I don't know. It was just all around awesome. And seeing him in that environment, which he clearly like thrived in, was very cool to watch.
Yeah, man. It was it's one of those things that like when I look back on, I think that's gonna, sit in that top spot for a long time. And it's something, I mean, I'm definitely going to go next year. Like now that I'm close and I know what it's all about, like that was our first time. So getting to be there, I'm definitely going to go there again. And, to see, I think another thing, like when we were talking earlier about the importance of Tyrese Maxey and what he brings, the city loves him, man. Like the city loves that kid. Um, and he loves it right back. So I think allowing him to grow within that, allowing the city to appreciate him for his career and be here. And, we see in the city, even guys that are very talented and are very good players, some guys just aren't built for it. He is very, very much built for it. So given that fact and seeing the way that the city embraces him, even in a situation like that where he's, not they're not in South Philly. They're not at the arena. It's not a Sixers game. People took time on their Monday evening to go see Tyrese Maxey play basketball, and they were all there to see him. So very, very cool, and I'm really happy that we were able to go.
Yeah, definitely. And I've had a couple people shit on me on Twitter today for one of my takes talking about how like in a potential Durant trade, you're sacrificing the next like 10 to 15 years of Tyrese Maxey and talking about how like there's no guarantee this guy sticks around and everything, which is for sure true. And I think it's a more complicated issue to fit into 180 characters, so a little tough on that one. But like I think the red carpet has been laid for everything for this guy to just take it and run for in the city. He's done everything possible to embrace that, to take it on himself. And it just feels like such a perfect mix with Philadelphia and Tyrese Maxey for him just being a cornerstone guy, a guy that like once it fits the mentality of everything, fits the identity of the city, and like it just has seemed the perfect match that I think this guy wants to be here for the long haul, and I do kind of hope that ends up being the case.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's you don't come along those guys every time, and even sometimes when they do feel like it and they do play into the crowd and whatever, it seems like it. We've been duped before, and the city turns on some guys. He's a guy that I do not see that happening. There's no like shred of evidence that would make me feel like he would do anything that would make the city turn against him. And I think it would be a shame for him to go. I think we're kind of acting like it might happen. I still doubt that it happens. In my heart of hearts, I do not believe that Kevin Durant will be a 76er come this season. I do have one more question before we wrap up here for you, just because I want to kind of bring it back to that before we wrap it up. Is there a world where, with the Sixers, they don't want to give up Maxey, but they do have some draft capital later, in the future? There is a team that has a star that's looking to be traded in Donovan Mitchell in Utah, and Utah wants draft picks. This is a hypothetical. Just I want you to just weigh in on this idea. The fact that 3 or 4 team trade, the Jazz are made happy by a lot of draft picks going their way. The Nets are potentially happy of maybe Donovan Mitchell going there. And then Kevin Durant to the Sixers. Like that is there a world where that potentially happens?
You're saying
Something of that sort, like where the Sixers move later draft capital to a third party team such as the Jazz that's looking for draft picks. They do have a star that wants, to be on a contender that, is probably going to be moved at some point in the next year or so. The Nets are in need of another scoring player, another star to fill in that role. He is younger. He could help you contend for a while. Like I feel like there's a world where potentially 3-4 teams get involved, where that could happen. Is that something that works?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I don't think there's any way the Sixers can land Kevin Durant without giving up Tyrese Maxey, no matter how many teams are involved. I just logistically can't see it happening. And the conversation to me is not like, will Tyrese Maxey become as good as Kevin Durant? I obviously don't think that's the case, but I do think like you're shortening your window to so small that in a way that it isn't the case. And I think there's a world where like Tyrese Maxey being the number one option, having Embiid and Harden like serve the twilights of their careers as this guy steps up to center stage is a world I'm fine living in. And I think that's
me too.
They should operate in that mindset that like they have to be really careful with how they play this. And if there is the decision to go all in for Kevin Durant, like you have to win a championship, at least one championship. And
at least one.
Yeah, that's like that's not an easy position to be in. So there's a lot of pressure that comes with that is where I sit. Bottom line is I don't think there's a way to land them without giving up Maxey.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where I'm coming from as well. It's like there's already a lot of pressure on this team, a lot of pressure on these players. Giving them Kevin Durant And if they don't win at least one, it's considered a massive failure. So still to be determined, still a lot to happen. We're still a couple months away from the regular season starting, but surely the drama will kick back in. It seems like there's a bit of a dead point in the off season. Not too much drama going on. Really, this is the only thing keeping the lights on at ESPN headquarters, it seems. So hopefully soon we're getting back into some actual basketball action. Until then, definitely keep up with us. We're getting really into a nice schedule here. Keep in touch with the Pick Swap Media. The brigade is going. We're basically into full force here coming up to the Eagles season. We're getting really close to it. So everyone's getting pretty excited. We're going to start rolling out full squad here. But so for that, obviously, go check us out on Twitter at PickSwap Media, TikTok as well. You can check us out on Twitter at PickSwap Pod, also PickSwap Media. You can follow Sean at Sean_Bernard1. Follow me at JSpring17 as well. We appreciate you guys as always, and we will talk to you guys early next week.